By the late 1840s, Charles Darwin lived a quiet life in Kent. He observed his garden, raised a family, and kept a rigid daily routine, while documenting a biological process that would challenge the core tenets of the Western world. He had deduced the mechanical process for how life evolved. To write it down, he told a friend, felt like confessing a murder. In the early 19th century, the accepted scientific consensus was absolute. The Earth was considered roughly 6,000 years old, and every species upon it was viewed as a fixed, perfect creation that had remained unchanged since the beginning of time. The ideas forming in this cautious gentleman's mind were about to dismantle that understanding of our place in the universe. He was an unlikely candidate for such a task. As a young man at Edinburgh University, Darwin failed out of medical school. He found the lectures dull and discovered he could not stomach the sight of blood. Seeking a respectable profession, his father sent him to Cambridge University to study theology. The expectation was for Darwin to settle into a predictable life as a countryside clergyman. But at age 22, Captain Robert Fitzroy invited him to join a 2-year coastal survey expedition as a naturalist. This map shows the HMS Beagle's route. What was planned as a brief mission became a 5-year circumnavigation across the Atlantic, around the tip of South America, and into the Pacific. Being removed from the academic halls of England and thrust into untamed environments changed his focus. He spent those 5 years collecting thousands of specimens and documenting geological formations, replacing his theological studies with the meticulous observation of nature. The most significant observations of the voyage occurred in the Galápagos Islands. This isolated chain of volcanic rock provided a closed ecosystem, a natural laboratory for studying isolated populations. This illustration highlights 4 different Galápagos finches. He noticed their beak shapes varied drastically based on which island they inhabited. A finch on an island with plentiful seeds possessed a thick beak for crushing shells, while those eating insects developed thin, sharp beaks for probing crevices. While finches are often cited as his primary evidence, his work actually began with mockingbirds. He noticed that birds from San Cristobal and Floriana had different breast markings and longer beaks, a specific pattern of variation suggesting that species were not static. To explain these changes, Darwin formulated the concept of natural selection. It functions as a filter. Within any population, individuals have natural variations. Environmental pressures, like a drought or a new predator, remove the organisms with unsuited traits. Only those with advantageous variations survive to reproduce, passing those traits to the next generation. This process is often summarized as survival of the fittest, though the term is frequently misunderstood. Here, fittest refers only to the organism most effectively adapted to its specific environmental niche. Darwin realized that species were not fixed creations. They were fluid populations, constantly being sculpted by the demands of their surroundings. When he returned to England with his theory, he did not seek a publisher. Instead, he retreated into his study in Kent. He maintained a clockwork daily routine, confined by a chronic illness that left him exhausted. He was a perfectionist who wanted his theory to be bulletproof before presenting it to his peers. He spent 2 decades testing his hypothesis to ensure he could answer every likely objection. He spent 8 full years classifying and dissecting barnacles, conducting breeding experiments with pigeons, mapping out exactly how specific traits could be isolated and amplified over generations. His silence ended in 1858, when a letter arrived from Alfred Russel Wallace, a biologist conducting field research in Asia. Wallace had independently formulated the same theory of natural selection. Faced with losing credit for 20 years of research, Darwin finally presented his findings jointly with Wallace, introducing the theory to the scientific community. This is the title page of the 1859 publication On the Origin of Species. The book sold out on its first day and forced an immediate public debate over the origin of life. A fierce public and religious backlash followed. Critics accused Darwin of removing the divine from the natural world, arguing that his theory reduced life to a series of mechanical accidents. Privately, Darwin's own loss of faith was driven by personal tragedy, the agonizing illness and death of his 10-year-old daughter, Annie, in 1851. During the public debate, detractors claimed he believed humans evolved directly from modern monkeys. Darwin never made that claim. His stance was that modern humans and modern primates share a distant common ancestor. From that single ancient root, the lineage diverged into separate evolutionary paths. This theory shifted our self-image. It placed humanity as one branch on a vast, interconnected tree of life, rather than a separate creation existing outside of nature. Darwin's work at Downhouse became the bedrock of all modern biology, providing the framework for our understanding of genetics and modern medicine. He spent his final years as a revered figure, a quiet man who led a biological shift from his armchair. If Charles Darwin could see the state of modern science today, what discovery would surprise him the most? This idea was not born from a desire for conflict. It emerged from one man's unyielding need to observe the natural world and to document the truth of what he saw.